Alrighty, so Wednesday, July 10th, taking a look at NQ here for a quick session recap. Now, one of the things I had mentioned yesterday during the session recap, Tuesday session recap, which applies quite nicely to today's action, is just because we see that exhaustion, signs of exhaustion on the daily time frame chart. It's not a blind invitation to be shorting. This is kind of one of the things I was touching on yesterday in the session recap. If you caught either the live stream or the recording, I want to be really cautious, kind of front running that potential pullback here on the daily time frame chart when you see action like this without any sort of confirmation. And with this type of action, when we see this exhaustion bar like we have right through here, the confirmation is going to come with a move through the low of that bar, which we just did not see for today. So what you have happening here from my perspective is a lot of market participants kind of front running that weakness, that expected weakness, that short opportunity. And what's happening is they're just getting squeezed out, right? Any shorts that come in yesterday, once price really starts to trade up through that prior day high and continue above that prior day high, they're forced to cover. That results in higher prices. And then you get people wanting to chase the highs, and it just get the trend day move here, right? Up into that upside reference point, which is right there at 56.75. So a nice 1 ATR move here on ES. Let's take a look at NQ. I think it was a little less than 1 ATR. Let's double check here. Yeah, a little bit less than 1 ATR on NQ, but nonetheless pretty close to that full ATR move. A little bit of better volume here in NQ versus ES. Now, as far as the structure is concerned, that is one of the primary issues with the current setup, at least for the strategies that I personally like to use. We now have 6 consecutive days higher with a pretty large economic data print tomorrow being CPI and then PPI on Friday. So I do expect more volatility and some better price action with tomorrow's CPI print. That's one of the main things I'll definitely be looking at. Most likely we'll see some opportunities following the print. So there may actually be some opportunities to trade during the pre-market session, depending on, as always, where price is located and if we have any reference points or levels of interest to be leaning on. As of right now, trend higher continues, right? The main context here is that 2-week range that we had. Got a 2-week range right through here, just sideways range. And now we're still within that expansion move higher. Had that initial clue yesterday that it may be getting exhausted, and then today it's just, nope. Continues right on through the highs into another one of our upside reference points, which is one of the fib extensions up there into 56.75. So as far as how to approach tomorrow, what I'll be looking at is how price trades versus this 56.75 area and today's session high. Now take a look at the profile. We'll have to see how the profile closes out with still about 15 minutes into the close, but all of the volume for today's session was done way down here. Typically, this is not a good thing because it means that the structure is quite poor, right? Or think about where our nearest level of interest is, where the nearest volume point of control is. It's way down here. So it can lead to some pretty explosive moves in both directions when you have the nearest high volume node or the nearest volume point of control with a big distance from current price. So something to keep in mind there as far as keeping it simple for tomorrow. See the reaction versus today's high, and that should keep us on the right path. So that's ES. NQ is going to be pretty similar. Both the indices are pressing all-time highs today. We did have a little bit of a different shaped daily bar here on NQ for yesterday to work with. That was a doji instead of that exhaustion bar. And again, anyone who's going to be front running that potential exhaustion and loading their shorts during Tuesday's session, forced to cover today, right? So you have kind of that forced push higher via short covering, and then any longs are going to also pile in there, and it results in a move like this. Now, for me personally, this is not a day where I'm going to be very active despite almost a 1 ATR move, simply because my strategies are based mostly on near-term structure and much stronger pivot levels. So a session like today, I'll look for an opportunity or two. If it doesn't materialize, then that's a wrap on my day. I have no business really getting involved with price action well above the prior day high, because I don't have any type of level of interest or even a reference point to set my risk against. And that's a key component of my personal strategy. So action like this doesn't really bother me. I don't really care to get involved, simply because it's outside of what I'm really looking for in the index. And so if you find yourself this week, feeling a little uncertain about trading less, things like that, you got to understand this is just part of the business. This is part of the game. There's going to be times where it's going to be a little bit slower, and there may be times where it seems like the market is putting in a big move and you're not capitalizing on that. Well, if there's not a setup that is within your framework, within your playbook there, that you can actually utilize to get involved with the play, then you have no business getting involved with that move. And that's kind of how I view action like today. So not really too worried about it, just patiently waiting for that next A+ high probability setup. It's just a matter of time, right? And during that waiting period, our job is to not do too much damage to our trading account or expend too much mental capital. Because if you are fighting the action, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday comes around and you get some really great setups, and you're either too fatigued to actually capitalize them or you don't trust them, then obviously that is going to be a problem, right? So just kind of an aside there on the current action. And this tends to be the norm when price is pressing all-time highs, right? We don't want to be chasing those highs. At least I don't personally. Like to get involved with strong structure-based location. And if I can't do that, then we just wait. Okay. So as far as NQ tomorrow, same type of approach. Want to look at how price responds versus that upside reference point here at 20,900. Today's high, that upside reference point. Ideal scenario would be some sort of pullback so we can get involved with a stronger structural area, which at this point would be the 770 reference point, which will most likely be converted into a level of interest by tomorrow's session. So that'll be the main watch for tomorrow, essentially on both ES and NQ, looking at the reaction versus today's high. Hope you guys had a good session. If you have questions about anything, feel free to shoot me a DM. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning for the prep. Have a good afternoon.